What's up, Scarred Ones? Welcome to our first weekly Q&A. In this Q&A, we're going to be answering questions about our story, including all aspects of the lore. We're going to be answering ones on production, music, pretty much anything you have to do with podcasting, creating an audio drama, any question you have for Sirenicide and crew. We're going to try to get those answers directly to you. Now, this is our first one, so bear with us as we try to figure out exactly the bearings of how this is all going to go. But basically, you can ask a question in the Scarred Ones group, pretty much any of our social media platforms, and we'll try to work it in. The best place to put the questions would be in the comments on this video, because those are going to be able to be easily directly transferred over to next week's Q&A. And if you want to prioritize your questions for just $1, you can go support us at our Patreon at Sirenicide's Patreon, which is patreon.com/Sirenicide. Or you can go to our website and click on donations and go there. Just $1 is going to get you not just prioritized questions for the Q&A, but it's going to get you access to our secret Facebook group, which has a whole lot of really cool things going on that we're not going to talk about here because you're not in it, you're not paying for it. But you're also going to get access to my daily vlog, which I post within that secret Facebook group. And, you keep the show alive for just $1. And any kind of bonus behind-the-scenes content, most people have access to that too as well. There's other tiers that got physical perks and all that, but this isn't a Patreon ad. So without further ado, let's jump into the questions.
And our first question is going to come from Jason
Cisneros?
Yes,
Okay.
from our Sirenicide Scarred Ones group.
What's he got to say?
He is asking, so how did you first come up with the story itself? What was that aha moment when you realized that you have a story to tell? Will you take the time to listen? And how did it manifest over the years in later episodes? Was it kind of the story set in stone, or did you come up with it on the fly?
Well, we definitely didn't come up with the story on the fly. So it wasn't really an aha moment either. I guess some things as we were going like, ooh, yeah, this will work and that'll work. So that kind of pertains to the on-the-fly element. But for the core story itself, it was more or less trying to figure out a guy wakes up with a scar on his chest and he's going to be doing these interviews and it's going to end up unlocking the road to what could be potentially the end of the world. That was the rough outline. And pretty much everything we've done hence since has fallen into that. So I kind of knew that if we were going to give at that time, our band, our stage names, like back stories and things like that, that I wanted to kind of almost do like a comic book element to them where it almost seemed like super surreal, like, Joker falling in toxic stuff or, somebody like losing their parents in an alley, that visceral kind of like life-changing moment kind of thing. But we knew that there had to be like something a lot larger than just the character's backstory. So we created the anathema. So very good question. All right, let's go on to the next one.
All right, so our next question comes from the same group, and it is from Jasmine Moisey Forstenall.
That's better than I would have said it.
So her question, what advice would you give to someone who's considering launching their own podcast?
Don't listen to all the people that say it's a waste of time. Because when you start getting into something like this, most people don't even know what a podcast is. So the people that don't understand it are going to be very negative towards it. Don't let that sidetrack the main thing, which is create. Don't let setting up a server, setting up a website, little funds. Depending if you're making audio drama, it's going to be a little bit more funds because, you got to get voice actors and things like that. But if you're doing like a commentary podcast, it's just as simple as plugging a mic in to your computer, downloading like something Audacity for free, recording into that about what you want to talk about, and, publishing it to the web. Get a good server. We use, I think, Libsyn. So, I mean, they're cheap. I think their intro plan's like $5 or something like that. And then upload it and get it out there. Don't like drown yourself in all of these, this podcast does this and that podcast does that. Don't compare your podcast to so many others. Just create and try your best to mail that idea into an audio form that represents what you want, and a lot of the rest of the stuff will start falling in place, and you'll get better as you go. I guess the big thing is to try to have, at least 3 to 4 episodes ready before you start publishing that first episode.
Yeah, that kind of takes some of the stress out of it, doing it that way. It is a lot of time, and it can be very tedious, but at the end of the day, it's very rewarding to be able to press play and hear something that you spent all that time on.
That's true.
And this is from Jessica McAvoy. What is it like to go from a metal band to an audio drama? Will there be more in the Sirenicide universe to come?
And that's like a double loaded shot question.
Yeah, she got a twofers.
Well, we did a whole 4 or 5 different interviews on the metal band to podcast thing. So I guess to cliff note it for this, but I'm sure in the Q&As throughout the future this will be brought up a lot. But it was very eye-opening that you could transition from practice 2 to 3 times a week, and the small practices being 3 to 4 hours, to the all day on Sunday practices, playing the same songs over and over again, to going to a place, playing in front of a bunch of people, and then, a couple hundred people following what you do, and then bringing their friends to your next show, and that growing over a few years, versus telling a story and putting it out there and having literally in a few months' time thousands of people asking you questions about it and following what you do and telling their friends. So similar in that retrospect, but a whole lot more, I guess, rewarding on the more ears hearing what you've done. But it's still, it's different than, of course, performing on stage. Performing on stage is something that is completely not touchable with just talking in a box like this. That being said, I really love this, though. I love crafting the story and getting out to people and then hearing all the little intricate questions and theories and things that come along with it. It's been really fun. What was the second one?
Will there be more in the Sirenicide universe to come?
Yes.
Easy answer.
A lot more. Stay tuned.
It just keeps getting bigger.
That's what she said. All right.
Okay, so from the same group, the Sirenicide's Scarred Ones group, Rachel Lamb asked, where did you get the idea for the name Atrium Dynamics? Because for some reason, every time I hear it, I think of Soul Reaver.
Well, sounds like me and you might be around the same age, because as I was growing up, I played the Legacy of Kain and Soul Reaver games as well, and I always thought it was cool with the company Crystal Dynamics. Had dynamics in their name instead of studios or productions or, something like that. It just sounded so awesome. And I, growing up with, heart disease and all that, I'd constantly hear them talking about repairing things by your atrium and your, that kind of thing. So I just put them together. I mean, I liked, of course, our heart as Atrium's logo. Now, for those of you curious, Atrium is the company that runs everything I do. It's for lack of a better term, it's my Lucasfilm. It is in every aspect of the creative involvement of Sirenicide, Eon Code, a whole bunch of projects. And back in the day, we used to film bands and things like that and publish their live shows for them on YouTube and all sorts of fun stuff, make flyers and things like that. But yeah, it had to do with, but man, spot on. Crystal Dynamics, every time I saw that pop up, I was like, oh, that's so freaking cool. So yeah, I guess that's really it. Go Soul Reaver, man. Raziel, Kain. Great story.
I've only listened to it a billion times.
Yeah.
I've never actually played it.
I don't play it anymore, but I do try to make an annual thing every year, literally listening to, all the cutscenes and interwoven stuff. It's like 9.5 hours. I spread it out over about a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Just take a break from my podcast, and I just go, and there's a YouTube video. I've said that on a few ICE episodes, but now I've said it here too.
From Alberto de Jesus.
Okay.
Long ago, you gave me a snip of what originated Sirenicide. Connections to role-playing game. Any chance we may see Sirenicide outside the cast? Perhaps something on the role-playing connection?
Yes. Yes. The answer to that question is yes. No, there is a game called Midland the RPG. If you scroll into the Scar Ones group, our Twitter, or any of our social media outlets, you'll see the little logo I designed for it. That's coming next year. And it's going to be someone who's not into actually playing can watch the cast do the role play, and then depending on what Patreon tier you're at, you could actually become one of the people that are Skyped in to play with us, or Google Hangouts or whatever we decide to use. There's gonna be a whole lot more on that coming, but great question. They got us on the Q&A.
Yeah.
I'll take your vague picture and raise you one.
Can you give us a sneak peek of something that's just too good to keep hidden? Also, what's the cast's favorite episode or moments of the show so far?
I might throw a sneak peek of something at the end of this. It's the first Q&A, so stick around to the end of the video. But don't just hyper scrub to the end of the video, because I might not put it right at the end. Gotta watch all the way through.
And as far as our favorite episodes or moments, there's so many. I think we're all so different. We probably would pick something.
Yeah, I mean, I can't
Different.
speak for the rest of the cast. I can say as far as moments, with story, it's always a runoff between You, Me, the Gerbil, and the Flea, and Little Wolf Moon, and Right Through the Heart. Those 3 episodes are always like neck to neck for me for my favorite storyline moments so far. Not including anything from season 4, but outside of that, I think that one of my favorite things has just been getting everybody together and us shooting the shit around a table, coming up with the ideas.
Yeah.
The writers' rooms are really fun.
Yeah, they are. We basically make a whole day of it.
Yeah.
We all do a potluck type thing, and it's usually a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it usually takes about 2 to 4 of those for a season. Usually we meet up about 4 different times to create a season, and then about one to 2 for the mini episode breaks. So we've had quite a few of them over the last few years. Good question.
Ooh, now we have an awesome segment called
Is this the Matt Hughes Minute?
The Matt Hughes Minute.
All right, so I might later on in the videos do some kind of music or some kind of transition fade, but for this one, Matt Hughes, he's like, I just got a couple of questions. And there was 8. So we're going to break these down. We're going to do 2 questions, a Q&A from him, and then I'll probably have him try to keep feeding us some, because they're really, really good questions.
So the first question we have from Mr. Matt Hughes is, there's an underlining music and transitional music and passage of time that helps with the overall flow of the comprehension of the story. Is that an overall sound you planned for the story or something you added after trial and error to fill the dead space?
So I got to give credit where credit is due on this one. Eddie Vile, not the crazy ambulance guy, but the drummer of Sirenicide. He, when we were writing season 1, he brought up, I can't remember if it was Hannibal. It was some show, and he was saying that whenever they would transition, there would be this transitional music that would happen, whether it's going back in time or something like that. He brought that up, and then he put the sound that is this sound. He put that sound to us, and I was like, yeah, dude, that's perfect. And it does. It gives the sense of, okay, hey, time has passed. So.
And if we go backwards in time, we reverse it.
Yeah. And the first part of the question, what was that? It was underlining. Oh, the underlining music. Yeah, that was just because we couldn't just give up on Sirenicide as just being musicians. So it's been really fun writing cinematic music, synth music, and things like that were completely out of our wheelhouse. So yeah, I mean, creating all the underlining music. So it's not just a scene, like you said, it's just empty spaces. That way that, it's situational. Big Star Wars fan, and there's always some kind of music going on in a Star Wars scene. Whether it's really big or it's subtle, it's there. So
yeah.
if there's not music in one of our scenes, it's typically because we really, really want you to pay attention to this dialogue. It's important. Or the music stops because something's about to happen.
And we've noticed like different songs, like we'll listen to something like that song does not fix this, and we'll like rearrange the songs and pull it from another episode, because not one we've already done, but one we had planned out, like pull it from that one because it fits a scene better. And it's crazy how much it changes the mood of a scene.
Yep, it's true.
How long does it take to flip an episode? Aside from writing, just getting the crew together for scripts, reading down to the finished product. I imagine it depends on the episode, but on an average episode.
Well, an average episode is anywhere from 25 to 30-ish minutes. Production alone is usually about an hour a minute. So if the episode is 30 minutes long, it took 30 hours to make. That's not writing a script, and that's not casting either. Casting, I typically do on my lunch break before and after my day job. Like, I'll set up the questions before I go to work. I'll answer them on my lunch break, and then I'll respond to them or check out the demo lines and things like that when I get home that night. Those I do outside of production and writing and things like that. So if I strip out casting, I think an hour per minute of finished product is a good measurement.
Yeah.
And as far as turnaround time, that is situational based. Just all depends on how sound effect intensive is the episode. Like the one we're working on right now is very sound effects intensive. It's a flashback episode to the 1800s, and it's a big one. It's a long episode, and it's very, very sound effect intensive. So that one's actually turning out right now. It's about every minute is probably about every minute in the episode's about 1 to 2 hours has been the production on that one. So that one's about double what it normally is. So it gives you a little bit of an insight to that question, I think if I didn't answer that correctly, please feel free to let us know. All right, so the next questions I think we're going to be going into is the spoiler questions.
Yes.
So if you're not wanting to do spoilers for the storyline, you're just kind of checking this out, you might skip ahead a few minutes for these questions. If you don't care about spoilers, then go on. Even if you are prioritized on our Patreon, that's correct, right? Yeah. We will still, when you ask the spoiler question, we'll put your spoiler question before non-Patreon spoiler questions. That way it's still fair, but those will be after, until we get done with season 4. After about 3 or 4 months, when season 4 is over, it's going to be free for all. You press play on one of these Q&As, Sirenicide spoiled at that point.
Yeah.
But for right now, we just want to protect, because we still got a lot of new listeners coming in the door. I'm about to do a convention in a few weeks, so we're going to get a lot more from there. And this might be the first video they press play on. So, spoiler warning. Spoilers. I might put something there. Probably won't. All right.
Brandon Gear.
Cool, dude.
So in season 2 finale, Matthew Finnis claims that Sirenicide might not be the bad guys. I understand it is essential to his development and who he fights monsters. And he who fights monsters. So it's interesting. But 2 episodes before, Matthew is disgusted with Sirenicide's methods of getting bodies and orders from all their contracts cut up by the DE. What changes his mind?
Well, there's quite a few months, I believe, of time that passes between those 2 events. And they're not canonical in episodes that we have touched on now, or maybe if ever. But yeah, I would say that it gets really hot in the hot box, by the way. We are in our recording booth, which has no ventilation. So as these Q&As go longer, we get sweatier. But at least there's no smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision.
But I think what changes his mind is essentially when he kills the Wraith a few episodes before that. He starts realizing that the power he has had is not... It's been looking at this point like, who did this to me? They messed my life up. And now it's like, you know what? That felt good, killing that Wraith thing. Now it's starting to corrupt him, I think, at that point. So I don't think Sirenicide are good guys. I don't think they're bad guys either. They're great guys. But I think he's realizing at that moment when he's saying that these might not be the bad guys that you think they are. Now, of course, Harper's on the other side of that still, so he's like, what? Listen to yourself. And I really think that even all the way through season 3, Harper really feels that way. I don't think he ever steps away from Sirenicide as not that great or not that good of people. Now we'll see what that does in season 4, but
Stay tuned.
stay tuned. Good question.
Maya Zapita. Was Nancy of romantic interest to Doc, or was it only based on her abilities? She just burnt the house down with her husband in there, all caps. Also, who plays her? Excellent actress.
She is played by Nancy is played by Katie Burr from Southern Grimoire. And on that episode, I think we give like a sample or a trailer of her podcast. Go check out Southern Grimoire. But yeah, no, I think she says to Johnny something like, Doc's not interested in carnal knowledge of this sort. So I don't think that they were a romantic interest or a love interest or anything like that. I think this was somebody that was feeding this woman's sick desires and like taking them from just working on people in her attic to something a lot larger, like a hive. And I think that it was just, imagine you're working your day-to-day life and somebody walks through the door and gives you the keys to everything you've ever wanted. It wouldn't matter who or what they are, what they look like, what they're about. You're going to have some sort of affection towards that person. And I think that was at their initial interest in each other. I think he was using her because he's Doc, and that's what he does. But
she's seen it as her way out of her mundane life.
And yeah, she freaking burned her husband alive like it was no thing.
Well, I mean, what was she doing in her attic?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I think that's
it.
Right,
that was our last question for this episode.
All right, so that's the end of our Q&A. Again, if you want to, make sure you like and subscribe to Sirenicide's YouTube. Help us grow this channel. Ask any questions that you have about our production, anything, story, anything related, podcast related. Ask those questions below. If you want those prioritized, again, you can join our Patreon at just $1. And we would really appreciate that. But if not, we enjoy you sharing this, spreading the word, trying to get these Q&As a lot bigger. We're going to try to knock it to where it's 5 questions from the Patreon group and 5 from other social media outlets a week. That way they're not too time consuming. But this was number 1 and it was fun. All right, so I guess we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
An abandoned airport? Why am I not surprised? Sirenicide is going into the commercial airline business now?
No. Causing plane crashes wouldn't make for easy body recovery. It's not really our style.
Our style? Man, you really have been drinking that ice-cold Sirena punch, haven't you?
Of course. That punch is spiked with purpose and fulfillment. I can't say the same for what you've been drowning yourself in lately.
As if you would know. But yeah, I have my treatment down.
All elements of Sirenicide are copyright 2019 by Atrium Dynamics unless otherwise stated. Any duplication of this production without the secured written consent of Atrium Dynamics is strictly prohibited. Please visit Sirenicide.com for more details.